an alien invasion. Is it biblical? Of course it is.
Clearly, I'm not here today as a fact witness.
You can Google it.
I think you just use the Bible, do whatever the hell you like.
Just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Welcome to Mystery Bible Theater 3000. My name is Caleb Hegg. With me, my lovely assistant, Rob Vanhoff. Yes. How's it going, buddy? We have an interesting one today. We got an interesting one today. Because I don't know, it's, I don't know if it's really Mystery Bible Theater 3000 material or not. I think there's some misperception here, but I don't know if it's on the Wackadoo scale or not. Rob has never seen this video, never heard this video. We've got a lot going on right now. In fact, we've got enough for two regular shows, not Mystery Bible Theaters, but regular shows. So what we need is content for Mystery Bible Theater 3000. Go ahead and send it to chegg at TorahResource.com, CHEGG at TorahResource.com. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. It does help us. I know that sounds weird, but it does help. If you are already subscribed, go ahead and give this video a like. That helps us too. All right, man. You haven't said anything yet? To our waiting.
I'm on edge. The only thing I've noticed is that you've got your guitar pick, except I know it's not a guitar pick.
Boom. There it is.
It's your mandola pick.
It is a mandola pick. That's right. Picked up a new instrument. It's amazing. Having a lot of fun with it. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Let's not bore the audience with musical nonsense. Let's kick over here now. You know me. I like to give credit where credit is due. Unfortunately, this video came with no reference that I could find to the original. So here's what happens on these kind of videos. What tends to happen is, and I think this is what happened here, a different channel will clip something that they see, and then they will put it onto their channel as a short. And I think the hope is that they don't get copyright infringement, which they probably don't. But normally what you would do as a creator is you give credit to the other creator, the person who originally did the content, right? Like that's showing good form. And so we try to show good form whenever possible, and we try to, lower this even a little more. We try to show good form and give credit to the creators whenever we possibly can. So the people who are talking are obviously, they obviously have a show, professional looking mics. It looks like they got a good background. So I'm guessing that this is a podcast of some kind, and they probably videotape, just like us, they probably videotape the podcast and post it. I do not know who these gentlemen are, so I'm sure that our sleuth audience will go ahead and tell us who these gentlemen are and whatnot. This, now, as I said, I don't know who these gentlemen are. They seem very sincere. There looks like to be some tweed blazers going on, so very scholarly. That's the mark of a scholar. I don't know if people know this or not. Mark of a legit scholar, tweed blazer.
And a tobacco pipe?
Tobacco pipe and maybe a whiskey. That's how you know that a person is legit. Nevertheless, these guys don't. Now, once again, I don't think this is Wackadoo. I think that this is a misperception, but I don't think it's Wackadoo. So we're going to kick over here. And we are going to just go ahead and listen to this one. Here we go.
On what basis did the Jews before Christ trust in the Old Testament if the church's authority as we know it hadn't been established yet?
They were in a state of confusion. So the issue here, Matt, is that the different divisions of Jews had different views on canon. Sadducees and Samaritans said it was only the Pentateuch. The Pharisees said, well, there's 22 books, and it was roughly like the Jewish Bible is today. The Essenes were including the Book of Jubilees and the books of Enoch as canonical in their Bible, so to speak. So there was a lot of religious confusion going on, and they were waiting the Messiah to come and solve this. And Jesus does this. Jesus teaches the apostles by word and example which books to quote as authoritative. That was passed down by example until the late 300s, where it starts to get written down by the councils of bishops.
Okay. Oh, wait, hang on. Pints with Aquinas is the name of this podcast, I believe. Pints with Aquinas. So there you go. There's your reference. And I will try to find Pints with Aquinas. Now, listen, here's the thing, is that the gentleman speaking is not wrong to an extent. I'll give you my perception of this, and then I'll kick it over to Rob as he's marinating in what has just been said here. I don't think the gentleman speaking is wrong to an extent. I think the only thing that we see that is wrong here is that the Jewish people were waiting for Christ to come and establish canon. And what I mean by that is when Yeshua comes, he references the law and the prophets. He references, the writings. So the reference that he makes, he does not have to clarify what he means. He doesn't say the Torah and the prophets. And when I say prophets, I mean these prophets, right? So I think that the Pharisees had a well-established canon. And I think that Yeshua or Jesus is coming in the tradition of, I think that he leaned more towards the Pharisaic tradition. And this is why we see the Pharisees there all the time, is because he's pushing against the Pharisees, and the Pharisees see him as in their same vein. Now, the gentleman's right. There was a variant on canon when it came to, say, the Essenes or the Samaritans. We know this, and so, but I think that they were seen as outside the norm of the majority of Israel. So ultimately, this is why I don't think this is wackadoo. I think that this gentleman actually has it pretty much right, save the fact that the Jews were waiting for Christ to come and establish canon. I think the canon was already established. Yeshua comes and he quotes from the canon, he refers to the canon, and he solidifies that the Jews, just as the Torah says, right? That Paul says, what benefit then is it to be a Jew? Much in every way, for they were entrusted with the covenants, right, and with the writings. So the point is that the Jews are entrusted to carry on the tradition of the canon, and this is exactly what they do. Christ comes, he reaffirms that they are the ones who are carrying the legitimate canon, and he agrees with it, and this is why we have the canons that we do in the first century. That's my view of it. Rob?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. The person who's talking about there's confusion, he's got a lot of puzzle pieces in the right places, I think, in that. However, we have to look at this ecclesiological question of when did the church begin? As part of,
thank you. Yes. Yeah.
That's part of the situation. And if he's saying Acts chapter 2 is the beginning of the church or something like this, then he kind of is on this, like what I call the Andy Stanley wagon, which is detached from we're unhitched from the Old Testament kind of thing, because they're trying to create a hermeneutical space where the church is independent of everything that came earlier.
Yeah, and I actually think that what you're talking about right now is the first. It is the first puzzle piece that is chipped away. That leads to so many of the church's theological problems. And what I mean by that,
here's a good example. Oh, sorry. Go.
Well, I was just going to expand on that just a little bit. What I mean by that is, if you believe that the church is separate from Israel, in other words, there is a separate entity that is God's people, a second God's people, then all of a sudden you open the door to replacement theology. You open the door to a dual covenant. In other words, these covenants were made for this people group, but I'm not part of that people group. I'm now part of this people group, so I get to pick and choose what covenants are for me. So, and this is really where we start to see a breakdown of theology from the very beginning, right? From the first century on, of a misconception. I think that we have to reclaim the notion that Israel is God's chosen people. We become covenant members and we attach ourselves. We become heirs according to promise, meaning that we enlarge Israel. We are grafted into Israel. Go ahead.
Yeah, and back to he mentions I think he mentioned the Sadducees, the Samaritans, the Essenes, the Pharisees. And he's saying, oh, there's confusion. What he failed to see is that they're all what we would call Mosaic covenantal communities. They all envision themselves as being grounded in Mosaic revelation of the Torah.
Absolutely.
And even the devil can tell Yeshua in the wilderness, well, it's written, if he will send his angels, so throw yourself down because it is written. Even Satan says it is written. Satan doesn't have to go to the Essenes or trying to find legitimacy. And what this person doesn't recognize, the person is that, like we see from Luke chapter 1, we see Zechariah. He's a faithful Koine. He's doing his duty. He's going in offering at the time of the incense offering. He has the revelation that his barren wife, and they're elderly, right? Like Sarah is going to have a baby. He too is now a priest. And Yeshua said he's come, he comes in the angel said, but then even later, Yeshua says, this is Elijah. In other words, he came in the spirit of Elijah. I believe that there's every generation, there is faithful among Israel,
right,
all the way back.
Yes.
And we wouldn't have what we call the Masoretic tradition today with a fixed canon, with vocalization tradition. Even if you want to quibble about, oh, this is vocalized wrong or whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is you have a faithful transmission of a huge library that we call the Tanakh or the Old Testament that was preserved and protected by Jerusalem scribes, that all these other, whether it's Samaritans or the Essenes, they were kicking against what the Jerusalem scribes were producing. They were adding to it. Well, with the Samaritans say, well, we reject the Davidic dynasty. We don't believe God ever chose Jerusalem, whatever. Point is that, and then like you said, Yeshua went to the Pharisees. The Pharisees had the canon correctly, but the Pharisees did not invent their idea. It didn't take a Pharisaic council to we're going to go and evaluate every book and decide whether it's in or not. They were just putting they're saying, look, we agree with what the Jerusalem scribes have preserved. That's why we don't have a book of Jubilees that preserved in Hebrew with vocalization, or the book of Enoch, or any of these other kinds of things, We don't have it. Why? Because there was no faithful core. And so my point is, even the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus, the son of David, the son of Abraham, right? And then it goes back, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all the way to Yeshua. It goes to David, it talks about the Babylonian exile, right? All the way back to Messiah. It never mentions the Maccabees. It doesn't mention the Maccabean revolution or uprising and reclaiming of the temple. It doesn't mention any of that. Why? It just mentions this family line. It means it's the same thing with Elijah, where God says, I have preserved 7,000 that have not bowed the knee to Baal. And so Elijah thinks he's all alone, but God's like, look, dude,
there's more. Yeah.
I've got this covered. You know what I mean? God knows what he's doing, and he's got a long-term plan. And this tree, back to what you make the point of the grafting, we're not grafted. It's not like God planted a brand new tree in Acts chapter 2.
Right.
The core tree was there. That's why it says many Pharisees came to faith. Many priests came to faith. It never says the Sadducee came to faith, but it does say there were Kohanim who came to faith. Does that mean they had to change religions? No. It means that they were affirmed in what, yes, the scribes have faithfully preserved the canon, and now we see the truth. But they didn't stop being a Mosaic covenantal community. They just understood the tree better. They understood, oh, God's including the Gentiles now, and we have to. So it's true that Israel was in exile, even though they had reclaimed the Holy Land. And yes, there was confusion because the Romans were kind of controlling Jerusalem, and you had an installed king like Herod and his dynasty, And all you had available was these little factions to try to build their little worlds and hold on to what they thought was their interpretation. But that's no different than the Christian church in America today, more broadly written, the idea of all these little denominationalisms. So I think this guy has he's got a more clear picture, I think, than others I've heard, but I think he's not. Are
you a Monty Python fan?
Yeah.
Because what I think about when he says, when the church started, what I think of is the Black Knight, right? The guy runs up and he's gonna fight the guy, right? And he comes up and he hits his leg and his leg falls off. And he's like, ha-ha. And he's like, puts his sword back and he's like, I cut your leg off. And he's like, no, you didn't. It's just a flesh wound, right? And like he keeps coming. But that to me is that's the cut that is made when you say that the church was started in Acts 2. You're finished. Like the theology has broken down now. You're hopping on one leg, and all it takes is a couple more theological steps, and now you have no arms left, and now you have no leg left.
Isn't that what leads to the Roman Catholic Church saying we started with Peter?
Exactly.
And now we're a Christ Church built on Peter, who's the first pope.
But it's not far.
Like how would you argue against the claim for Catholic authority? Like how?
Exactly. And here's the thing is that I think that it's not wackadoo. It's not far off. It's not. I think that the vast majority of Christianity today believes that God started something new in Acts 2, which is the church, and that the church has the authority today, and that Israel is second-class citizens now because they crucified Christ. And the thing is that this is so mixed up, and it's so anti-covenant, anti-Bible, anti-God. And the thing is, I'm not saying that these people are anti-covenant, anti-God, they just have, it is the biggest lie made to the Christian church by the Christian church. And people buy it hook, line, and sinker. And I think that this is one of the things that starts us down the road to all sorts of heretical doctrine. And one of the reasons that much of the Christian church, not all, but much of the Christian church is so off kilter today. And the thing is that we, in our main show, we looked at these guys from Cultish, and it's like, man, they want to argue that the Hebrew Roots movement, and I agree, the Hebrew Roots movement is off kilter, but they want to say that any Torah observance is against the norm of Christianity. But then when it's brought up, well, what about the Reformation? That was against the norm of Christianity. They're like, whoa. We don't follow Luther, we follow God. It's like,
yeah,
dude.
Well, here's the thing. In my opinion, Caleb, especially, I think God is allowing all this woke, upside down thing to infiltrate and just stinkify the world, because guess what? The only thing the church can stand on is it is written.
Yeah, back to the law of God, man.
They have to say it is written.
Yep.
Because what is a Christian going to do? You can't, if you're not going to be able to say it is written. Yep. On what grounds, except for revelation from God? And what we believe is that the Torah was the core revelation,
right,
for establishing and bringing shape and instruction and righteousness to the seed of Abraham, so that the covenant promise would have structure and trajectory and clarity, just as a father instructs his children and teaches them something. This is, it gives informative learning and discipline and direction and meaning, and points to a direction, not just say, oh, here, go, we have no fences in our backyard, kids. There's a freeway right there. Here's a ball, go kick and just have fun. And, and the kids have to learn for themselves to stay out of the highway, to not get hit by a car, or, it's the struggle, the woke culture that we're in is confronting God's people with, it's forcing them to come to terms with a theology of the Torah, or what you would say, like, what does it mean to be am I pronomian, as we could use that term? And then what does that specifically mean? Where do I draw the line?
Yeah, I'm going to give this 0 Wackadoo points. I think that this is not Wackadoo. In fact, I think that this is mainstream Christian belief. Maybe save the idea that the mainstream Judaisms of the first century didn't have an established canon. I think that this is. But I think that even that probably is a somewhat accepted view within Christianity. But ultimately, I don't think that this is Wackadoo. I think that this is off a little bit. But I think that the thing that really shines to me as the thing that's off in this is the standard Christian notion that the church began at Acts 2. All right. If you have videos that you want to send us that are purely Wackadoo, then go ahead and do that. See Hegg at TorahResource.com.
Or even suspect Wackadoo like this.
Yeah, suspect Wackadoo. Actually, videos like this should probably be dealt with on our regular show, which is Wednesdays, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. You can catch it live on YouTube, and it's on every podcast platform there is. Once again, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. I know it sounds weird, but it does help us. All righty. As I said, our main show will be airing. We'll have one this Wednesday and the next Wednesday. We have some good content coming up, and a lot of people have been emailing us asking dynamite questions. We've gotten some videos, so I would highly recommend you checking it all out because we're gonna have some fun. All right, thanks so much. We will see you next week.